For many New Yorkers, one missed paycheck can mean bringing their kids to a homeless shelter. I'm Richard Gere, and I want you to help keep New Yorkers in their homes. The New York City Department of Homeless Services can help stop homelessness before it happens to you. Their home-based prevention network helps thousands of New Yorkers stay in their homes. Call 311 today or visit nyc.gov. Reach out before you're forced out of your home.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a brand new public service announcement from the city's Department of Homeless Services, focusing on its home-based program, which is getting a major expansion. Here more to talk about home-based and other programs. We've got the Homeless Services Commissioner, Gilbert Taylor, Queens City Councilman and Council Majority Leader, Jimmy Van Bramer, and the Executive Director of the Coalition for the Homeless, Mary Brosnahan. Thank you all for being here. And let me start with you, Commissioner. What made you decide to have Richard Gere as the face of this outreach effort?
So Richard Gere actually was filming a movie at one of our shelters here in New York City. And when he finished filming, he offered his services in terms of wanting to take on the issue of homelessness in New York City and said that he'd be willing to do a PSA for us. So we were really happy to have him participate.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm sure he did it in one take, you know. But this is different. And, you know, to a certain extent, I want to start even with my audience in trying to sort of change people's perception about where the problem of homelessness lies. It's not the guy panhandling on the corner necessarily or in the subway. You're talking about a different population, people who are on the verge of losing their homes. What's the profile of somebody like that? Who are you trying to reach with that ad?
So there are a lot of people who are threatened with housing instability, people who are positioned to lose their apartments or lose their homes, some people who are one paycheck away from a bad event or one incident from a bad event, a health-related issue, a separation in a relationship can end and then someone's faced with financial instability. So we're targeting everyone who's at risk of losing an apartment or losing a home. We want them to know that before they're forced out, they should reach out to us, to our home-based offices. We're in New York City, we're in 23 locations. We've expanded home base by twice its strength of what it had been at the beginning of the year. We've reinvested, or actually invested, $42 million in home base since the beginning of this year to open 9 more offices. So we're casting our net wide to make sure that people know who we are and what we can offer.
So somebody walks in the office and says, you know, I'm that person Richard Gere was talking about. I just lost my job, lost my paycheck. What can the city do for them?
So our home-based providers are nonprofit organizations that contract with the city, and they'll provide financial counseling. They'll provide advocacy with landlords. They'll work with our clients to get a sense of exactly what is the presenting issue and how can we help them to overcome it so that they can stay in their homes and not be displaced.
And so, Jimmy Van Bramer, compare this to what went on under the previous administration. What's the new strategy as far as you're concerned on the other side of the building?
Well, I think, A, there's honesty about the situation that we're faced with. I think there's some transparency, and I think the focus on preventing homelessness before it even occurs is something that is a marked contrast from where we were. I think the investment from $20 to $42 million in the home-based program alone is very significant, but I think more than that, and part of why I wrote the piece I wrote, is this real attempt to humanize and destigmatize the homeless and to make sure that everybody in the city of New York realizes that it could be anyone, and in my case, of course, it was.
Well, yeah, talk a little bit about that. You wrote a big piece in the New York Daily News. You disclosed something that those of us who have known you for years, even before you became a council member, did not know, which is that there was a period of time when you were young when your father, when your family was in the very position that we're talking about.
That's right. I mean, I think I was impacted by the deputy mayor and the commissioner coming to the city council's leadership and talking about the issue, and really not in a bureaucratic way, but in a very human way, addressing this issue and making sure that we were all doing everything that we could. So I couldn't, in that meeting, in all good conscience, not think about my own family's experience, and that by sharing that experience, it might shed light and let those folks who are out there who are believing in some stereotypes or negative things that they've thought, that the homeless aren't just that panhandler on the street, but in fact a family with several children like mine, where the father was working, but the family was going through a difficult time, struggling, and wasn't able to make the rent, and that family where the father was working but the family was struggling was in shelter for a set period of time, but not forever.
Right.
And that we were able to get out of shelter into permanent housing and make a better life for ourselves. That actually is more accurately the profile of the families that are in shelter today than what most people would think, and I thought by sharing that story it could help, and I hope it has.
And Mary, I mean, this whole issue of stigma, I mean, I've seen this a million times in a million different ways. I mean, if people are determined to read a stereotype into a group of people, my experience has been that they're going to do that no matter what. And you can literally be, you know, Ivy League trained president of the United States, and people still say he's a Muslim socialist. You know, those people, they don't do this, they don't do that. All they want is a handout and so forth. How do we sort of turn the corner on that?
Well, I think there's been such a amazing outpouring since Jimmy wrote his piece, because it just explodes through that wall. People, you know, ride the subways, they walk the streets every day, and they do see people, usually single men, who have mental illness or substance abuse problems. But tonight, we're talking over 56,000 people are in the shelters, over 24,000 are children. And so, you know, we have been running a eviction prevention program for years, and you see the families that come in, and you know, one of the first questions that we try to grapple with, are you able to pay going forward? And if you are, just even if you don't care about the human toll that it's taking on those kids, you know, compare a few $1,000s to keep them out of shelter and keep them stably housed in their home, the kids stay in the same school, versus, you know, $40,000 a year for them to fall into literal homelessness. So, you know, whether it's Richard Gere or Jimmy or people just saying, look, the face of homelessness is really, could be your child, you know. And we were talking before about our children. The kids that are going to sleep tonight in New York City shelters are dreaming the same dreams that your son and my son are going to dream tonight. And we ought to give them what they need to make those dreams happen, a fighting chance.
We've got more to talk about. We're going to continue this discussion after a short break. Later tonight, folks, a recently passed bill brings harsher penalties to landlords who harass tenants. But it could also drive some landlords perhaps out of business. We're going to debate that issue and find out what's going on. And Governor Cuomo has agreed to a pair of debates, but you won't be able to see him go head-to-head with his Republican challenger, Rob Astorino. We'll ask 4 members of our Consultants Corner what they think of that strategy. Stay with us.